Book of Heaven, Volume 21, Part 9. May 18th, 1927. The value of the acts done in the divine will. How one who lives in it possesses the source of goods. How God does not know how to leave things half done. Victory on both sides. I was following the divine will, going around the whole creation, and while I was doing my acts, my sweet Jesus made himself seen in my interior, gathering these acts on his lap, that were all of light, but one more refulgent than the other, one more beautiful than the other. And he called the angels, and gave each one of them part of these acts, and they competed among themselves to receive them. And as though in triumph, they carried them up to heaven. And Jesus, all goodness, told me, "My daughter, the value of the acts done in my will is so great that the angels consider themselves fortunate to receive them. They see in them the creative virtue. They hear the echo of the divine Fiat in these acts, that while being light are divine voices, and while being voices are melodies, are beauties, beatitude, sanctity, divine science. And since my will is virtue of heaven, the angels aspire to bring the acts done in it into their celestial dwelling. Anything that is done in my supreme will cannot remain on earth. At most, they can be done down below, but my will itself, like magnet, draws them back to itself, into their source, and gives birth to them in the celestial fatherland. Then I felt my poor mind as though absorbed in the eternal Fiat, and I thought to myself, how can so much power be possible? So many acts in one, done by operating in the divine will. And my lovable Jesus added, "My daughter, why does the sun give light to all the earth? Because it is greater than the earth, because it possesses the one and complete strength of light. It possesses the source of colors, of fecundity, and of the variety of sweetnesses. And this is why the sun, being greater than the earth, it can give light to all the earth. It can give the variety of colors to flowers, and the different sweetnesses to plants and fruits. In its greatness and magnificence, the sun does one single act, but in its single act it does so many as to keep the whole earth captured to itself, giving to each thing its own distinct act. Now my will is more than sun, and since it is the endless will that with one single act issues from itself the fecundity of all the other acts together, the soul who lives in it possesses the source of its acts, its fecundity. And so, in the soul in whom my will reigns and dominates, it changes neither regime nor manners, and as she operates in it, her acts come out with the multiplicity and the fecundity of its divine acts. All the acts of God are single acts that embrace everything and do all acts together. See, in the creation of man, one was our act. But in this one act, sanctity, power, wisdom, love, beauty, goodness came out of us altogether. In some, there was nothing of our own that came out of us that was not infused in man. We let him share in everything, because when we operate, we do not know how to leave things half done, but we do only complete works. And when we give everything. More so, since my will is endless light, and the virtue of light descends into the deepest depth, rises up to the highest, and extends all around. There is not one point that it does not reach, nor can matter or anything extraneous to light enter into it. It is intangible. Its office is to give, and give always, without ever ceasing to give. So it is for the soul who lives in my divine volition. She becomes light together with the light of my will, and therefore as light she descends into the deepest depth of the hearts, and brings the good of her light. She extends everywhere and all around, almost tracing everyone and everything with her light, to bring to each one its effects, the multiplicity and the variety of goods that her light contains. She would feel as though defrauded if she were unable to extend to all and everywhere, so much so that as she rises up high, penetrates above the azure vault, and echoes my very will reigning in the celestial fatherland, my same will that reigns in the soul dives together with it, and extending over all the blessed, forms its reign, and drizzles new joys, happiness, and new beatitudes over all. The living in my will is admirable. His continuous prodigy is the bearer of all goods, is the seed that multiplies to the infinite. Its fecundity is unreachable, and therefore it is longed for by the earth and by all heaven. It is the victory of God over the creature, and the victory of the soul over her Creator. How beautiful it is to see the greatest one, the Supreme Being, the Eternal Majesty, sing victory together with the littleness of the creature, and by virtue of this divine will, engage in a contest, the great and the little, the strong and the weak, the rich and the poor, and both be victorious. This is why I yearn so much that my divine will be known, and that its kingdom come, to let the creature win, and to place her as though at my level. Without my will reigning in the creature, this cannot happen. There would always be distance between me and the creature. She would be the one who loses, nor would she ever be able to praise and sing victory. The work of our hands would not have our likeness. May 22nd, 1927. How in creation the number of all things was established, even of the human acts. How Jesus enclosed everything within himself. I was fusing myself together with my sweet Jesus in his divine will, to multiply my thoughts with his, and to line myself up over each thought of creature, so that I too might give to my Creator as many acts of homage, of glory, of love, for all the thoughts of each creature. But while doing this, I thought to myself, how did my beloved Jesus do it? Do as many acts, as many thoughts, as many steps, and so forth, for as many as all creatures were to do? And Jesus, moving in my interior, told me, my daughter, just as in creation my divine will established the number of all created things, everything was numbered, the stars, the plants, the species, and even the drops of water. Not one thing can be lost or can increase, according to the order established by the supreme Fiat. In the same way, my will established all the human acts of all creatures, although by virtue of the free will conceded to them, they could make those same acts good or evil. But as for doing more or less acts, this is not given to them. Everything is established by the divine will. Now, in redemption, the eternal Fiat, reigning in my humanity, knew all the acts that all creatures were to do. All thoughts, words, steps, nothing escaped it. Therefore it is no wonder that I multiplied my acts for each active creature, so that the glory of the Celestial Father might be complete on my part, in the name of each creature, and for each one of their acts. And the good I impetrated for them might have complete fullness, in such a way that each one of their acts, thoughts, words, and steps was to have my act as help of their act, each thought of mine as help and light of each thought of theirs, and so with all the rest done by creatures. Having everything enclosed within myself, I formed within me the new creation of all the acts of creatures, to be able to give everything back to them. Nothing escaped me, otherwise it would not have been a work worthy of your Jesus, if even just one thought had escaped me. The creature would have found the void of my thought, and if she wanted to, she would not have found the help, the strength, and the light for her thought. Now, my daughter, I want you in my divine will, so that together with me you may form this new creation of all the human acts of creatures, in order to impetrate the kingdom of the supreme Fiat from my celestial Father. And so creatures will find the triple help of strength and of light in all of their acts, in order to return into the kingdom of my will. These universal triple helps are the works of the Sovereign Queen, those of your Jesus, and those of the little daughter of my divine will. Then after this I was thinking to myself and asking, what is this divine will? And Jesus added, "My daughter, divine will means giving God to God, divine outpouring, and transformation of the human nature into divine, communication of creative virtue, embracing the infinite, rising into the eternal one, and taking eternity as though in one's power, to say to God, 'I have loved you from eternity. Your will has no beginning. It is eternal like you. And in it I have loved you with a love without beginning and without end.' What is my will? It is everything." May 24th, 1927. Offering of one's work in the divine will. One who lives in it forms many acts of divine lives and possesses the bilocating virtue. I was doing the offering of my work, saying, "Jesus, my love, I want your hands in mine, in order to give to our Celestial Father that love and that glory which you individually gave him with your works while being on earth. Not only this, but I want to unite myself with you when you, Word of the Father, even from eternity, operated together with him, with his very works, loving with reciprocal love, and with perfect equality. And I want to glorify you with that same glory with which you glorified yourselves among the three divine persons. But I am not content. I want to place my hands in yours, in order to flow together with your hands, in your own will, within the sun, to give you the glory of the light, of the heat, of the fecundity of the sun, in the sea, to give you the glory of its waves, of its continuous murmuring, in the air, to give you the glory of the singing of the birds, in the azure heavens, to give you the glory of their immensity, and in the twinkling of the stars, in their flickering, I make my voice flow, saying to you, I love you. I want to flow in the flowery fields, to give you the glory and the adoration of their fragrances. There is not one point in which I do not want to be present, so that everywhere you may feel your little daughter, adoring you, loving you, and glorifying you. Then, while I was saying this and other things, my sweet Jesus moved in my interior and told me, "My daughter, I feel in you my glory, my love, my life, my works. My will centralizes everything in you. Not only this, but while you work, my will takes you into the sun, and you work together with its light. So your movements flow in the solar rays, and as the light diffuses, you diffuse glory and love for your Creator. How beautiful is my daughter, finding her in all of my works, working to give me the love, the glory that each one of my works contains. Since my will possesses the bilocating virtue, it also bilocates you, so as to be able to find you in the sea, in the air, in the stars, everywhere, to love you and to be loved and glorified. After this, I was feeling as though absorbed in the supreme Fiat, and I was thinking to myself about the great goods that the supreme will can do in our souls. And my always lovable Jesus added, "My daughter, each act that the divine will does, united with the soul, forms a divine life. In fact, my will being divine, it cannot help forming divine lives in its acts, in such a way that wherever it reigns, as the soul operates, speaks, thinks, palpitates, and so forth, my divine volition makes its work, its word, its thought, and heartbeat flow within that of the creature, first forming in her its act, its word, and then giving the birth of its divine life. So in everything the soul does, she releases from herself so many divine lives as to fill heaven and earth with as many images of divine life. She becomes the reproducer, the bilocator of the divine life. My will is not less powerful in the soul in whom it reigns, with the fullness of its dominion, than it is within the womb of the three divine persons. And therefore, possessing the bilocating virtue, it not only forms in the soul as many divine lives as it wants, but it forms in her its heaven, its sun, seas of love, flowery fields, and makes the soul say to her God, "Heaven you gave me, and heaven I give you. Sun you gave me, and sun I give you. Seas and flowery fields you gave me, and seas and flowery fields I give you. Your will repeats in me everything you have done for me in creation and redemption, so that I may give you everything, just as you gave me everything. O power of my will, what can it not do in the soul in whom it reigns? Therefore, wherever it reigns, it delights in placing the soul at our level. More so, since it knows that that is our will, wanting the creature to be similar to our image. And our will, our faithful executor, renders her such. And we call this creature, in whom our supreme Fiat reigns, our glory, our love, our life. Only with our will can the soul reach such extent. Without it, there is great distance between creator and creature. This is why I love so much that the divine volition reign in the creature, to give to our will extensive field of action, in order to bilocate our works, our life, and to raise the creature to the perfect purpose for which she was created. The creature came out of our volition, and it is justice that she walk in the steps of our will, and that she return to her Creator on that same path from which she came, all beautiful and enriched by the prodigies of our eternal Fiat. May 26, 1927. How God in creation formed many rooms in order to dwell in them, so as to let himself always be found by man in order to give him his qualities. A doubt that Jesus solves. How what seems difficult to the soul is easy for God. Laments of the soul. Jesus reassures her. My state of abandonment in the divine fiat continues, and after having followed it in its acts in creation, I was thinking of how to reorder again, before the Supreme Majesty, all the relations between Creator and creature that human ingratitude had broken. And my adored Jesus, coming out of my interior, told me, "My daughter, look at the whole creation, the heavens, the innumerable stars, the sun, the wind, the sea, the flowery fields, the mountains, and the valleys. These are all rooms that I formed, and in each room I formed my royal palace to make of it my dwelling. And this, in order to make it easier for man, so that wherever he wanted to come to find his God, I would give him the chance to find him immediately and everywhere." And he placed himself in each room in the act of waiting for him, leaving all the rooms open so as not to give him the bother of having to knock, but so that he might enter freely, as many times as he wanted. He would be ready to receive him. The Creator of heaven and earth did not place himself at one point only, but everywhere, so that man might find him always. And he placed these rooms so close to each other, so as to form many shortcuts, because between Creator and creature there is to be no distance, but closeness and communion. So all these rooms were, and are, relations, bonds, and ways between God and man. But who was to maintain these relations in force, strengthen these bonds, order the ways, open the doors? Our will reigning in man would take on this commitment so important of maintaining the order of all creation just as we issued it. As he withdrew from the divine fiat, the relations were no longer in force. The bonds were loosened, the ways barred, the doors closed. He lost his dear inheritance. He remained stripped of all goods. Each step was a lace at his feet to make him fall. By not doing our will, one loses everything, and there is no good left to him, while by doing it, one acquires everything, and there is no good that is not given back to him. What did the paternal goodness of the Creator not do in creation for love of man? He not only formed many rooms, but each different from the other, so as to let himself be found in many different ways by him whom he loved. In the sun, he would let himself be found invested with light, all majesty, burning with love, waiting for him in order to give him his light so as to let himself be comprehended, to give him his love, so that by entering into this room to find his God, man might become light and love. In the sea, he would let himself be found as the strong God, to give him strength. In the wind, he would let himself be found ruling and dominating, to give him rule and dominion. In sum, in each created thing, he waited for man, to give him the participation in his qualities. After this I was thinking to myself, Jesus loves his will so much, and it seems that he so much yearns for it to be known, so that it may dominate and reign. But it seems difficult to me that the divine will may be known, because there is no one who occupies himself with it, nor is anyone interested. All the interest is of Jesus. But in creatures, it does not exist. So if these creatures neglect to give this great glory to God, as well as to hold out the fullness of all goods to creatures, how can the kingdom of the eternal Fiat ever become known? Now, while I was thinking of this, my sweet Jesus moved in my interior and told me, "My daughter, what seems difficult to you is not difficult for God. Just as in redemption there were no difficulties for God, nor could all the human perfidy hinder the course of our love, and even less the fulfillment of our decision to come to redeem mankind. When the divinity decides to do an act, to accomplish a work, whatever the causes, the circumstances, the impediments might be, it triumphs of everything, it conquers everything, and it does what it has established. So the culminating and important point for God is in establishing what he wants to do. Once he has done this, he has done everything. Therefore, if in us it is established that our will must be known, and that its kingdom will come upon earth, it is as though already done. Just as redemption was accomplished, because it was established by us, so it will be done for our will. More so, since this, its kingdom, was issued by the divinity in creation, fully in order, so that it might reign and dominate. And with the fall of man, this kingdom was not destroyed, but remained intact. And it still exists, only it remained suspended for man. In redemption, I smoothed everything out, and just as I did everything so that man might be redeemed, so I did everything so that this suspension be removed, and the creature might enter into the kingdom of the divine Fiat, first giving place to redemption, and then, with time, giving place to my will. So what is difficult is to form a kingdom, a work. But once it is done, it becomes easy to make it known. More so, since your Jesus does not lack power. I may lack wanting to do or not do a work, but power I never lack. I will dispose things, circumstances, creatures, events, in such a way as to make it easy for my will to become known. Then I felt all afflicted, and I thought to myself, how hard is my state! I feel I cannot go on. The divine will is inexorable, immutable, and having to deal with the Fiat is no joke. one feels all the weight of its immutability, and one remains immutable with its immutability, impassive to everything. It puts one in the condition of wanting whatever it wants, be they even chastisements, or the very privations of Jesus that cost me so much. Of all that it wants, it grants everything, but of what the soul wants, it concedes nothing, not even one comma. But while I was thinking of this, my sweet Jesus moved in my interior and told me, "My daughter, my will wants to be free in the soul, and therefore it does not want to concede even one point or one comma of what she wants, be it even a holy thing. It does not want to find limits in her. It wants to extend its dominion in everything. It wants that what my will wants and does, the soul must want and do as well. Therefore it makes her feel all the weight of its immutability, so as to render her immutable, in such a way that she must not be subject to changing, because she sees creatures suffer, or because she sees them without some temporary good, or because she wants to give it. This would be going out of its immutability. This is human sanctity. The sanctity of my will is divine sanctity, and does not admit these weaknesses. If my divine will were subject to this, our justice would have to be without life in our Supreme Being, which cannot be. If you knew at what point our justice finds itself in these times, and if it wanted to unload itself completely over you, you would remain crushed. And my will does not want to crush you, but wants that creatures have their penalty in part. Also to make them open their eyes from the great blindness into which they have fallen. Almost all nations live relying on debts. If they do not make debts, they cannot live. And in spite of this, they celebrate. They spare themselves nothing, and are making plans of wars, incurring enormous expenses. Do you yourself not see the great blindness and madness into which they have fallen? And you, little child, would want my justice not to strike them, and to be lavish with temporal goods? So you would want them to become more blind and more insane. And in seeing that all your requests are not granted, you lament? And in feeling that my will has taken its place in all of your soul, leaving you no freedom in anything, you feel the power of the sanctity and immutability of my divine will. And besides, I've told you many times that the privations of me are nothing other than voids that my justice is forming in order to strike the peoples. Therefore, my daughter, do not lose heart. You do not know how much I love you, and how many treasures I have placed in you. Nor can I leave you. I must guard all the gifts I have placed in you. You must know that each one of my words is a divine gift. And how many of them have I spoken to you? And when I give, I never take the gift back. And to be sure that my gifts are safe, I remain as guardian of my gifts, and of the soul who possesses them. Therefore let me do, and let my will reign freely in you. Deo gratias. You have reached the end of the Book of Heaven, Volume 21. Fiat.